Welcome to the latest edition of the Cranky Curmudgeon's Corner. Okay, there are 2 years before the next midterm elections. Democrats have the presidency and razor-thin majorities in both houses of Congress. Do you anticipate any Republican cooperation to getting any significant legislation passed? Generally, how do you see the Democrats managing their mandate to govern these next 2 years? Thaddeus, let's go with you first.
Well, we can start out with how many executive orders did Biden sign on his first day in office? When the microphone had gone cold on his inauguration address. Unfortunately, a lot of that is going to play out over the next 2 years because they are going to get as much pushback as the not quite majority in the Republican Party is going to be pushing back against them. So I think a lot of what's going to happen over the next couple of years is going to have to be executive. I do expect that there can be some small cooperations between the parties, especially after this exercise, when I'd say the crush of Trump's influence on these people begins to ebb a little bit, and they can hit us. They can help in enacting some things that are of great interest and urgency to all the people. Things that are very, very popular. I've got hopes that we're going to make some progress in the next couple of years, bipartisan progress on immigration. Hope and pray, but unfortunately, we're probably going to lose some seats at midterm because it happens every time. There are going to be enough people who don't like what Biden and company are doing, and so we have to watch out for that. So it's kind of a teeter-totter that we're on, but I think we are going to make some progress, and I am hoping that progress is popular enough with all the voters on both sides to get them in the same corner.
Dan, what's your view on the Republican cooperation with the Democrats these next 2 years? How do you see it playing out?
Okay. I remember the negotiations around the Affordable Care Act. And I remember the Democrats giving away big, important pieces of that bill because of Republican objections. And then I remember not a single Republican voting for the goddamn thing anyway. They got passed in both houses through the supermajority that Obama had his first 2 years. So fool me 6 or less times, shame on you. But fool me 7 or more times, shame on me. We're not going to do anything with bipartisan support. The only bipartisan stuff that will get passed is stuff that has to be, like the defense bill that gets passed every year. Some of the budget options will be bipartisan, but things that actually require progress either to the left or to the right will not be done with bipartisan support. Now, I do think that there are things that, let me circle back a second. Mitch McConnell's real power as the Speaker of the House, or as the Senate Majority Leader, was to prevent things from coming up for a vote, because he knew that if it was put in front of his senators, they would have no choice but to vote for them.
Because it was good legislation.
Yeah, so he just didn't do it. Trump's declaration of make the stimulus checks $2,000, that was designed to punish Mitch McConnell, because Mitch McConnell had to hold that back because it was popular and would have gotten passed. And that is not what Mitch McConnell wants. So that was purely designed to humiliate Mitch McConnell. He can't do that now. So if there is bipartisan support for something, it will be something that is extremely popular and necessary, put in front of the entire Senate. It moves to the floor, and the Republicans will then have to go on record for opposing it. And a lot of them will not want to do that. Senators from states that are really suffering from COVID, they are going to want those relief checks. I know they're all clutching their pearls and wringing their hands about it's Biden's package is too expensive. We can't give everybody that extra $1,400. Oh, no, no, no. But in the end, if you put that in front of them, Mitt Romney has to go back and face his voters and say, I didn't want you to have this. Lisa Murkowski has to go back and face her voters and say, I didn't want you to have this. I think they're going to wind up voting for it if it gets in front of them. So I think that is the situation where it has to be done bipartisanly. Things like Biden's attempt to get the $15 minimum wage, even though Republican states keep voting for that, they're not going to pass it. They will draw their line in the sand there, because that's not a popular thing amongst the Republican caucus of voters at large. So they'll hold firm on things like that, but they're not going to cooperate with us. Their whole point is to show that government doesn't work, and obstruction is the best way to prove government doesn't work.
Okay, Merrick, Dan doesn't think we're going to get any cooperation from the Republicans unless it's something that everybody is really going to like, that they'll be too ashamed to vote against. What's your take?
Well, I think there is some shame involved against voting for relief for the American people. I think it's very interesting that they are crying about how much the bill is, and they had no problem giving wealthy people significant tax breaks. And the former chief executive of the government hadn't even paid taxes in God knows how many years. So I see moderate Republicans like Romney, Murkowski, Collins, who's Pat Toomey. I wouldn't consider him moderate, but
he's retired. He's got nothing to lose.
Yeah, he's got nothing to lose. So all the people who have nothing to lose because they're retiring, and then the moderates, I count between 7 and 10, will vote for that bill, but the rest of them won't, because again, these people don't care. They really don't care about Americans, and I think that one of the issues that I'm having is that they're quibbling about money that's ultimately ours because we pay taxes. So that's a problem, that they don't even realize the amount of suffering the American people have.
The Republican Party still seems to be Trump's party. Old line traditionalists like Mitt Romney and Lisa Murkowski are no longer in the mainstream. Merrick just mentioned Susan Collins. We're not even going to talk about Toomey. The new faces are the likes of Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jim Jordan, Matt Gaetz. How do you think the rest of America views the GOP and the direction it is headed? Thaddeus, how do you think that America is looking at the GOP right now, the way they see, the post-Trump presidency, but we still got the Josh Hawleys and Ted Cruz's there. They voted by over several million to vote for the Democratic nominee, Joe Biden. So how do you think the rest of America is seeing the GOP, the way it is going at this rate?
Well, I'm kind of hoping that there are a lot of people who agree with me, because this is my biased opinion. But it looks like as time goes on, there is only one way for Trump's influence to go, and that is downhill. So as he becomes less of an issue or less of an influence on things, we will, his shadow won't be over it so much. But in the meantime, we've got some of these people that you just mentioned who are talking about, oh, well, we have to let bygones be bygones and we want unity. And whenever I hear one of those folks say unity, what I hear is we want one party Republican rule, and unity will be achieved when the Democrats will just bow down and do what we tell them to do. That's about it.
Merrick, unmute yourself. What do you think about what the question was about the way America, most of Americans, being a person of color yourself, how do you think that your people, you and your people, are going to view the direction the GOP is going these days?
Most of us think, I'm speaking from experience. A lot of the folks that I run into believe that these people are crazy and that they don't deserve to rule. There's a portion of people that think like the Josh Hawleys and Senator Ted Cruz are actively trying to create a white minority government looking like what happened in South Africa. That being said, the future of the Republican Party is going to plummet downhill unless they get rid of Trump and decide to actually craft things that the American people want. And that is a serious concern. I think for me, when I think about the Republicans, I think about a person like Josh Hawley who has no moral compass whatsoever, and so he will have a following in the party. We have to be prepared for people who literally believe in authoritarianism. We have to be aware that these folks are in the Republican Party. And I believe myself that government started to break during Reagan's time in his presidency. But I do think that most people, and especially young people, they really don't get the Republican Party. They really don't. They're like, why can't gay people get married? Or sometimes they'll be like, why do they hate trans people so much? I hear that from a lot of young people. And when I say young people, over 18, they can vote. So as the country gets younger, the Republican Party will age, hopefully, into oblivion, and we'll have somebody else take their place.
Dan, oblivion for the Republicans?
I thought that was happening in 2008 and 2012. So, and I was wrong both times. So I'm not going to say that I'm sure that that's what's happening now, but it's nice to think so. I do think that they need to broaden their appeal, as Merrick indicated, and they just don't seem to want to do that. So instead, they have opted to go with the voter suppression as the means to win elections. And that bothers me a lot. So I do think that, I think when you look at the Trumpist senators, I think when you look at the Ted Cruzes and the Josh Hawleys, they are not as stupid as I want to believe they are. They are cold and they are calculating and they lack a moral compass, once again, as Merrick said, and they are going with it because they think that this will bring them power. I mean, Ted Cruz bowed down and kissed the ring of the man who called his wife ugly as a campaign point and implied that his father assassinated JFK. He didn't want to do that, but he did a cost-benefit analysis in his head and said, I like being a Republican senator. I will humiliate and debase myself and continue to do this. You have others like Mitt Romney who won't do that, but they are in the minority. Cruz and Hawley, they're eyeing up their own presidential prospects. That's why they're doing it. The Marjorie Taylor Greens, well, in the House, yeah, I believe that she believes everything she says. I believe that she is a batshit crazy, racist, gun-loving lunatic who really does think Trump won. Holly knows Trump didn't win. Cruz knows Trump didn't win. They know that there's no electoral fraud. But Marjorie Taylor Greene believes it. So obviously, what they're doing is trying to stop people of color who they see as natural enemies from voting. All the alleged voter fraud, it's all in urban areas. Urban is code word for black. Not any other minority. Black neighborhoods, black counties, black cities. That's where your voter fraud happens. And they're being very conscious about it, and it's very deliberate. And the fact that they are attempting to disenfranchise an entire ethnicity of people is really not okay.
Okay. The FBI has been pretty busy since January 6th. A number of people who stormed the Capitol have been arrested. I think the number's up to about 200 now. Do you think that they will be held accountable for their actions on that day? And will it be sufficient to achieve justice for what they did? Start with you, Merrick.
Well, I will say that when I saw what happened that day, it really disturbed my spirit. And all I could think about these mobs is how many of their ancestors participated in lynch mobs, because that was the energy that I got. They should be held accountable, but what I see is that some of them, probably most of them, will get off with a slap on the wrist, maybe some community service, and have to, do that, or even fined. But I do know that they are specifically targeting the terrorists among the rioters. So some will face heavy justice, some will face the heavy handed justice, others will either just get off, or they will get very low and reduced sentences, especially if they're first-time offenders. But what I think is so egregious to me is that these people literally were part of an armed insurrection against the United States government. And many of them have the prospect of spending no time in jail. I'm bothered because you got people of color, particularly Black and brown youth, in jail for marijuana charges, and ain't nobody trying to help them. So, weed versus insurrection. But again, this is America. America has two standards of justice. So although I'm disappointed and dismayed, I understand the truth of the situation.
So Merrick's not very optimistic. Dan, what about you? You think these guys are going to be held accountable, and you think that is going to be sufficient to achieve justice?
I think that there will be an accounting. Do I think that it will be enough? Oh, no. I don't have a lot of sympathy for any of these people, because I do think a lot of them are dumb. These are not patriots. These are fascists. And as an American, your standard position, your default operating setting should be anti-fascist, but that's a whole nother question. These people are not going to be held accountable in a way that I will find satisfying. Mm-hmm. They will be charged for what they did, but I will not find those charges to be enough. Because to me, what they did was treason. I'm not a lawyer. I don't work in criminal law. I have no experience with it. But to me, when you attempt to overthrow your government, that's treason. And treason is punishable by death in this country. I am not a fan of the death penalty either. I don't think that's what should happen. But I think that a lot of them are going to be charged with criminal trespass or vandalism. There are, however, a lot of them who are going to be charged with assault, rioting, more serious crimes, if they can identify all of them. Thousands of people stormed the Capitol. They have found 200. a lot of the folks made it really easy by putting videos of themselves on Facebook, like Private Jet Lady. Zero sympathy for that one. But yeah, I don't think that there's going to be a true reckoning. I mean, there was the woman, I believe she was from Philadelphia. She stole a laptop from Nancy Pelosi's office and attempted to sell it to Russia. She is out on bail. She's a fucking spy, or she wants to be. She can get executed and that's fine, but she's out just on her own recognizance. That's not okay. This was a huge national security breach. And these people do need to sit in jail for a long time.
Yeah.
At the same time, I don't actually want anybody to be executed because I don't think the government should be in the business of exterminating people. I don't know what to do. Like how do you punish the rank and file of the insurrection for being easily manipulated? Because that's really what happened.
They went into the building, so I figure they go into the building. They should have the book thrown at them. Thaddeus, sufficient justice?
Well, no, there isn't going to be sufficient justice for all, 6,000 people. I do have a little bit of confidence in the FBI and the Justice Department for rounding up basically the organizers or the ringleaders or whatnot and throwing the book at them. I think that some of those people whose names have already been in the news are going to spend a significant time behind bars, as well they should. But the idea of them rounding up all the thousands of people who stormed the Capitol that day is not likely. There are some that are going to slip through their fingers. There are, I think, as Merrick pointed out, there are some who are going to get a little tiny slap on the wrist. And I am still scratching my head about the one woman who is, I don't know if this is the same day's crimes, but before she faces her trial, she's been released on her own recognizance to take her vacation in Mexico. Now, that's white justice. And I'm going to see that for any Black person. Oh, yeah, just take your vacation and come back and go on trial. Right. So I think I'm more hopeful than either of my two friends that there is going to be some correct justice done here, but it really is not going to extend beyond maybe a few dozen of the people who are most deeply involved. And of course, we have yet to see whether it's going to have anything at all to do with the person who started it all.
One of the videos of the insurrection I found particularly disturbing occurred in the Senate chamber when the invaders gathered around the rostrum and bowed their heads in prayer. Another Trump supporter, talking to a reporter days before the inauguration, expressed his hope that God would do the right thing and leave Trump as president. My biggest beef with religion is the certainty that the faithful have in their beliefs, no matter how outrageous, that those beliefs cannot be questioned because it is God's will. Do you see any correlation in the mindset of religious zealots with the belief that Trump supporters have that he can do no wrong? Merrick?
Yes. First of all, what we have to understand in the context of this question is the rise of Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism is inherently racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic. and xenophobia. And I think that that goes along with Christian nationalism. And I think Christian nationalism is a motivation for a lot of those people. I saw a lot of Christian flags. I saw a lot of people. There were even nuns there. I don't know if y'all saw the nuns with the Trump scarves on in
Hmm.
full habit. Very few, as a old Catholic priest and Benedictine monk, I will tell you, most of the nuns are not in full habit like that. They came out of there looking like what is the lady my goodness, the flying nun. They they look like they were straight out of that. And so part of the problem is that there are churches that are radicalizing white racists. Okay, and so if the FBI treated these folks like they treat people who are suspected agents of Al Qaeda or ISIS, this would stop. But we have to confront Christian nationalism. This idea that that this is a Christian country founded by Christians, and for the purpose of advancing God's kingdom on earth. This is the philosophy. This is another thing that we have to essentially think about, is deprogramming these Christian nationalists, because they really believe that God wanted them to do that. And also, too, we also have to realize that over these past 4 years, there has been a theological case for the support of Trump. Pat Robertson said he had a dream or some type of vision that he saw Trump sitting on the right hand of God. Now, in Christian theology, who sits at the right hand of God? Jesus. So they have crafted a narrative that has made him a demigod. This is why this is so dangerous, because these people don't have reason. We really need to talk about and discuss and deprogram people from Christian nationalism.
Thaddeus, do I need to repeat the question for you,
No.
or?
No, but now this is going to sound kind of crazy, but your question made me wonder if the prognostications about the Antichrist might be playing out in real time now. The degree to which Trump has been able to flout every tenet of their faith, custom and discipline of their religion, and commandment of God, not to mention civil law, with impunity defies logic to me. And I wonder, did he really pull a Dr. Faustus and sell his soul, if he ever had one, to the devil?
You know, my wife and I just finished streaming Stephen King's The Stand. And I don't know if any of you have seen that or if any of our viewers have seen it, but there's one character, Flag, who is like, who's the devil, basically, in this. And the way he acted throughout the entire thing, although he had these supernatural powers, was really the way Trump has behaved. Okay, Dan, what's your take on this?
I have always found it I've had a mixture of ironic and amusement at some of this behavior, because it's only God's will when their guy wins. It's when Barack Obama won, it was the devil. When Hillary Clinton was nominated, it was the devil. Joe Biden, the devil. Adam Kinzinger voting to impeach, he must be possessed. It is only God's will when that happens. And I remember the concepts of trial by combat and monarchy by divine right, where the reason you have the throne or the reason that you won your fight was because God wanted you to win, and that's why it's okay. But they only take the winning half when it's theirs. I do think Christian nationalism is a huge problem, and it's not just a problem here. It's a problem in Europe as well. And they're really just as vicious about it as we are. They just have more sophisticated accents. But yeah, we've covered already that this whole movement is a cult, and it's definitely got a long game going. Like they took race and slavery out of the Civil War in the history books. They take what we know is the primary cause of one of the worst chapters in our history and sanitized it. So, and romanticized it and made the South wonderful. And it's so sad that we couldn't get along when it was just about states' rights versus federal rights. And, you know, it's the states' rights to own other human beings. That's never going to be okay. But we took that out. We whitewashed it. And now we have these Confederate monuments that people are defending. No, Germans understand their Nazi history. That's why they don't have monuments to Hitler. They can look at the things he did to improve their country and pull them out of the recession that followed World War I and the Great Depression. And they say, you know what? We're good. We do not need to remember this romantically. We do not need to remember this as something good that we did. We remember it with shame. And that's how Americans should look at the Civil War. But we don't, because we've been trained not to. So we think of American exceptionalism instead, and how we overcame the great evils in our past. It's not something to be proud of. But this has become a religion.
It has.
And it very much goes to I didn't own slaves, so I can't possibly be racist. And I don't know if my family owned slaves, or if we did, that was back like 5 generations. It has nothing to do with me. It's that attitude that's baked into our country and into our society, and that we have to get rid of. I don't know how we're going to do that. I think we have to be willing to have uncomfortable conversations, and especially as we're very young. Like I don't feel shame for being white, but I recognize the privileges that being white has given me. So I can use that to help other people if they want me to help them. If they don't, then I just stay out of their way.
Well, that's it. It's a tough dynamic. Okay, I want to thank Thaddeus, Dan, and Merrick for joining us. They will also be joining us for the next episode of The Aftermath. So until then, bye.